Okay, so when we talk about reasons, all right, the primary purpose behind these guys is going to be a defense of why you place certain animals in certain positions. So, let's assume we're talking about horse judging here. You want to have it. You can't just say like I place this class 1, 2, 3, 4, and then be done. All right, you have to have some kind of critique and demonstrate that you understand why you place those are the way you did, and defend those placings as well. All right, because realistically, if you were to do this in like an actual judging atmosphere where there's money on the line, people have spent $5,000, $10,000 on this animal, you better have a pretty good reason of why you placed it the way you did. So as we begin to break these down, all right, they usually follow a traditional organized format. Here it is written out, okay, step by step of what you write, when you write it, and so on. And it's really just a pattern. And so it'll make more sense once we get going here. Personally, I prefer more of a visual model. So this is what I will do. I've color coded different parts in a couple different examples that we'll go over. Firstly, usually you will start off your reasons by saying the class name and the placing of whatever you chose. This would be, for example, I place this class of ice creams 2, 4, 3, 1. All right. It's just a simple statement. That's it. All right. Next, you have comparisons. Now, these are your what I like to call words. Anything that is a comparison between one animal to another. All right. Don't get mixed up on comparing like the first to the last or the first to the third. You do them in pairs. So you have your top pair, 1 and 2, middle pair, 2 and 3, and then your bottom pair, 3 and 4. All right, moving on. Okay, grants. This one, you can take it as more of a compliment. So we don't really want to trash talk these animals completely. We usually like to compliment in some aspect, right? And so usually this will come right after comparison and before a criticism. All right, to show you where that you might find that. Here's our comparisons. So notice how I've got a greater, richer chocolate, okay, in this example, when I'm placing 2. So I'm talking about why 2 is better. So I'm saying he has a greater texture and a richer chocolate than 4, which would be my second place here. Okay. And then I go and I grant 4 a compliment, right? And so in this example, I say, while I grant that 2 has a more complex flavor, I criticize him for lacking in his chocolate content. All right. Even so, I placed 4 over 3 and so on. All right. So usually have grants and then you have criticisms, and these will be the negative aspects of that animal. All right. And then you'll typically have a pairing. Okay. Like I mentioned before, just stating this is my top pair, this is my middle, and so on. All right. You can see that here. Even so, I placed 4 over 3 in the middle pair of these ice creams. And in the bottom pair, I said, nonetheless, I place 3 over 1 in the bottom pair of this class. All right. So I'm just really stating where we're at, which 2 animals we're judging. All right. Now, this is a really, really basic example. And this, if you gave it with some conviction and you didn't have a ton of gaps within your reasons or hesitations, like if you gave it confidently, you could get probably like a solid 30 to 40, maybe. You may not get a 50. All right. Just because it's really, really lacking some depth and some vocab. Right. And so in this example, right, we only focus on chocolate content, texture, and complexity, excuse me. Okay. So when I'm grading these, right, I'm writing down what 2 is good at, what 2 is bad at, what 4 is good at, and what 4 is bad at. The more you can do, the better, right? In these examples, I only cover one good thing and one bad thing about each one. All right. If you take a look at this example down here, obviously it's a little longer, might be a little more scary. All right. All they're doing is they're adding more features that they are saying it's superior on, right? So they're just adding more comparisons. Notice, okay, everything else though, so grants, they have 1, 2, 3. Okay. I also have 1, 2, 3 grants. Okay. When we come to criticisms, okay, they also only have 1, 2, and 3. All right. So the only thing that's really expanded between this guy and this guy is they have more comparison. So as you're judging this class, before you get prepared to write your reasons and give them. My advice is that you try to not only aim for one good thing and one bad thing about a class, but 2 to 4 if you can, right? This one alone, right? Let's talk about 2/3. 2 has the most muscle width from end to end, prominently V'd in the pectoral region. That's where they see that muscle. 2 is also the biggest of the hip, okay? And they see it over the crop there, all right? And then a third one, okay, 2 wraps most bulge and expression around the forearms and gaskets. Really, they're just talking about the muscle, okay? So notice how they started with muscle, and what they're doing is just depicting on where they saw that muscle throughout that animal's body, all right? So don't get too caught up on the length. Focus more on the multiple features and your ability to describe how you saw that, where you saw that. All right, let's see. The other thing I'm forgetting, right? So we have an opening statement. This is what that looks like. So you say, sir or ma'am, I placed the aged mares 1, 2, 3, and 4, finding the commanding winner in 1 who best combined quality, balance, and structural correctness, right? That's their opening statement. Okay. Notice how mine is a little bit shorter. So I say, I placed this class of ice creams 2, 4, 3, 1. 2 comes right out the top of this class because of his most complex flavor. Okay. Notice something we both did though. Okay. So we had our placement and we had the name of the classes, ice creams. This one is going to be aged mares and their placing. Okay. The other thing that they did is they said their superior animal or superior ranking, and then they moved into comparisons. Okay. So for this one, winner, it's obviously 1, right? Because he has the best quality, balance, and structural correctness, right? In mine, I really just listed 1 because Rocky Road had the most complex flavor profile, okay? So if you want to jump from that 30 to 40 range up to a 50, that is where you got to add, all right? Is use your descriptive words and add context to where you found those, okay? So let's say, and then the last thing here too, is they also have a closing statement. This is something that I'm lacking, right? I didn't write a closing statement. I really just said my superior up here, and number 1 is most inferior because he comes in the bottom of this class because he is the simplest of flavor, total lack of chocolate content, and total lack of chocolate content, all right? If you take a look at theirs, okay, you still see the steepest, lowest, worst balanced, okay? So they still have that I ended on, but they add this additional closing statement, and it's really just to wrap up your summary is, and therefore the aged mares are placed 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so that is the basic composition of these reasons. In the next video, I'll show you guys kind of a breakdown of, as I'm judging a class, how do I construct this on the fly? Because you really don't have a ton of minutes. It's too much time to judge these classes, right? So instead of just standing there after you find your placing, as you're looking, try to pick out a couple vocab words or a couple areas that you see those distinctions, whether it's muscle, whether it's in their performance, anything that is noticeable, write it down as soon as you see it. Okay, perfect.